Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Tiny Fit Diva podcast. I'm your host, Kylene Terhune, functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner. And today I'm really excited to introduce you to Dr. Michelle Jeffries. Dr. Michelle is an integrative dermatologist in private practice in Phoenix, Arizona. She's a triple board certified osteopathic physician in dermatology, pediatric dermatology, and integrative medicine. Dr. Jeffries also has a master's degree in psychology and is an Institute for Functional Medicine certified practitioner. Her training and background have led her to a unique, individualized, holistic approach to skin health that blends mind, body, and spirit with skincare. To learn more about Dr. Jeffries and integrative dermatology, you can visit her website, drmichellejeffries.com. So welcome. Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited. It's good to see you again, too.
You too. It's always fun to reconnect. And I just love having this platform to ask lots of fun questions and bring information to people. So I'm really happy to have you today. And today we're going to talk about skincare. And so can you share a little bit of your personal story? So where did you come from? What got you interested in dermatology? And you come from the medical background, which is awesome.
Right.
So can you kind of share your journey there?
Sure, absolutely. My interest in medicine started when I was really little. I was one of those kind of geeky kids that would watch cartoons, and I'd sit and thumb through the encyclopedia about the human body and was so fascinated by it. Just thought I couldn't wait to learn all of that. And so I think I just always knew I was going to do something with medicine or the human body or something. And then my journey, I when I went to college, I thought for sure I was going to go into medicine. And I took a little bit of a sidestep. I had a couple people close to me pass away and made me really think of whether or not I could walk that line of life and death and be a doctor. So I kind of went more into psychology first and then realized that medicine was my true passion and came full circle back into medicine again. My interest in dermatology actually started when I was a teenager. I had the worst breakouts, and I was very horrified by it. I would always try to cover it up, and I would feel very insecure about how I looked and how I presented myself to people. I tried different medicines, different things didn't work. I went on Accutane. I did a lot of different things, and honestly, it really wasn't until I started branching into integrative medicine and looking at my nutrition and all of those different things and looking at it for a holistic perspective that I was really able to heal it. I also had a bunch of rashes when I was, a teenager and going through college. And so that was always a mystery of where that came from. And now I understand all of that. I always wanted to work with kids too. That was a passion of mine. And so interestingly enough, I didn't think you could be a dermatologist and work with kids. So I actually started out in pediatrics and thought I would specialize. And then I met one of my mentors and I shadowed him. He's a pediatric dermatologist. And we went into a room of a rash and he told me a very analytical way to look at it and how to piece it together and how to view the skin as clues. And it just resonated with me so much. I knew for sure that I had to be a dermatologist. So I got background training in pediatric dermatology and adult, and I love blending it all. And then I went on to integrative medicine. So that's the quick version.
I love it. So it usually does start out with a personal story. And as you were talking, I was thinking, man, puberty is rough.
It is.
Hard. I remember I struggled probably, now it seems like 3 years, maybe it was a shorter period of time, but it seems like it was like a 2 or 3 year period of my life where I would sweat so hard that it was going through my clothes.
Yes.
And I would not be doing anything. I would just be sitting still, and it was so embarrassing that I would take little panty pads and I would put them under my armpit. I would sweat through those. And I was like, what the heck is going on? And, at that age in my life, it was so embarrassing. And I felt like, something was wrong and it felt like it was taking like forever, years and years of my life. And finally my mom had like a doctor's appointment. I was like, hey mom, can you ask him about this? And I didn't even have to be there. And she came home with like a prescription deodorant and they got rid of it, which is a whole other story. But yeah, that's such a hard time in our life. And there's so much that you look back on and you're like, oh my gosh, like Okay, so that was one thing that happened, and then your skin stuff happens, and it's just not a fun time in life.
Well, it's such a developmental time when we're learning how to be ourselves and step
Yeah,
into our own. And so there's such a like mind body thing happening and
right.
discovering and the stress of it too. And yeah, it impacts your emotions and everything. I mean, it's a very interesting time.
Yeah, you're trying to figure out who you are and trying to relate to other people, and in the meantime, you're breaking out or you're sweating through your clothes, and it just doesn't
Right.
make fun. So what's the difference between a conventional dermatologist and an integrative dermatologist? Can you share how your perspectives would be different?
Sure. And I think the future of medicine is this will all blend together. And eventually most dermatologists, there's a big interest now in becoming more integrative. So I think right now there's a little bit more of a separation, but I think eventually it will kind of bridge together. Basically in conventional dermatology, we're kind of more taught that we treat a disease and we have a prescription, and we treat it that way. We don't get a lot of background training in nutrition, how stress impacts things. And so the whole mind, body, spirit piece of it is missing as far as our training. In integrative dermatology, I did the integrative medicine fellowship at U of A with Dr. Andrew Weil for 2 years. We learn all about nutrition and stress and herbal medicine and all the different perspectives of how to look at the human body, Ayurvedic medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, and how to put all of that together with the prescription medicines. So the main difference I would say is it's not eliminating conventional medicine and it's not ignoring natural medicine and all of the other kind of ancient technologies that are available to us, but it's putting it all together. And then, finding what works for an individual person too, and not just doing a blanket for everybody. Everybody gets the same thing
Mm.
every time. It's really individualizing it. So
Yeah, I think that is the future of medicine, like you're saying, and hopefully beyond skincare, but just medicine in general, where because I think there's such a good or there should be a good balance between we do need conventional medicine
right.
and they do have their strengths and the holistic side and functional medicine they have their strengths and there's
Mhm.
times where they really need to work together to help
Yeah.
the patient or help the client and so hopefully that's where we're headed. So that's awesome. I love that you're able to kind of individually blend both sides, which is fabulous. So you talk about what you think is or some of the main underlying causes of skin problems, because I mean you're kind of mentioning with conventional dermatology typically it's addressing a symptom with a cream or an
Mhm.
external approach, but you take more of an internal holistic whole body approach to it.
Right. Usually when I talk with my patients, you'll find that as you keep digging a little bit deeper and getting to know somebody, you'll find that there's probably an initial stressor or something else going on in their life, that's related to when they flare up with their acne or their eczema or their psoriasis. And so, stress and just dealing with life challenges, we see it on our skin. There also can be food triggers and food sensitivities that they didn't know they have, that when they eat certain foods that maybe create some inflammation internally, they're creating flare-ups as well. And a lot of times this is all blended together. It's not just like the one thing that's doing it. It's usually a combination and a perfect storm
Mm.
of everything. And so unwinding that and looking at that from a deeper perspective and putting those pieces together, I feel is key to getting them to a better healing space.
Can you talk a little bit more? You were mentioning food sensitivities. Can you talk a little bit more about how your gut health impacts your skin and how important that is?
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. I love talking about this because when you think about the gut, you think about, okay, that's in my stomach, that's down here. But if you actually look at your body, you have this external part of your skin, and then you have your lips, and then what goes into your mouth goes into the gut and goes all the way through. And so to me, it makes sense that this is all one continuous thing. Everything that's on the inside and outside is all one piece. And so to me, it makes perfect sense that what you would eat would impact all the other organs of your body, including your skin, and your skin being one of your biggest ones. So what we usually see in integrative dermatology is food sensitivities, such as dairy sensitivities, gluten sensitivities, sometimes sensitivity to other foods like eggs, soy, other things like that too. And what can happen is that the body, and you actually did a wonderful podcast on this, by the way, about gut health and the microbiome and leaky gut. And so what can happen is basically you eat certain foods that your body doesn't agree with, and it can create some inflammatory responses. And everybody's different about how they respond to that. Some people have tummy aches or diarrhea or headaches or something like that. I tend, to see some of those patients, but usually when they're coming to me, it's because their psoriasis flared or their eczema flared because they ate that particular food and they haven't put the pieces together. So there's a huge link between it.
First of all, I didn't know you listened to the podcast, so
yes,
thank you.
I love your podcast, and I'm so excited about everything you're doing. It's
That's
just
so awesome. I love it.
Yeah.
Secondly, do you ever have people, when you're working through food sensitivities, because sometimes I feel like they can be so random. Do you ever have people do food journals to sort of help them figure out the correlation or the consistencies? Because, we can test, but sometimes that tends to be expensive for people. And there's so many different ways that your body can react to foods that sometimes one test doesn't always cover all of the bases. So how do you typically approach that?
Right. And additionally, the testing can tend to be a little expensive too. So, I work in a clinic where we take insurance. And so I don't really have a lot of opportunities to do some of the testing, or they really want to try to do everything through insurance. And then what else could they do to build upon it? And certainly working with coaches like you that can kind of dive a little bit deeper and do those things has been helpful too. But, I feel that if you can actually do a trial on yourself, because a test is just an objective measure, it doesn't really tell you what's going on with you. It can be falsely positive or falsely negative. And you really want to know, is it related to me at this time? And so usually we talk about what they're typically eating, go through kind of a pattern of what they like to eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then, hey, you know what? I think that maybe you're having a lot of dairy. Let's try to eliminate it. Let's do that. And then we'll see when you reintroduce it, do your symptoms come back? And that's really, to me, more of the true test rather than the labs. But like you said, it can be confusing. They can have a sensitivity to kind of rare things that you wouldn't think of. And that is where more sophisticated testing, and I do collaborate with functional medicine practitioners in my area and functional medicine coaches and nutritionists to kind of piece that together too. So
it is so different, I think, per person, and everyone's so biologically and chemically unique, and your history and your stress levels are so different that it's just, it's sometimes hard to pinpoint. But what's so interesting about food and our bodies is there are a lot of similarities in terms of, we have those top 7 food allergens, and we can start there. And most people, I think, do really see results from just that alone, which is awesome. And then it's like, well, if you need to dig a little deeper, okay, maybe we can invest in some testing. But typically, like what you're saying, the elimination process is the gold standard, because testing can't cover everything, but your body will tell you. So if you're able to kind of target the right stuff, eliminate it, and bring it back in, you'll know.
Yes.
You'll get gassy, or you'll freak out, or you'll get a headache. It will tell you.
And it's hard to do. It's not one of those simple things to commit to, I find. And you have to be at a certain level of, you're like, okay, I need to figure this out, and I'm done with this, and I'm ready to commit. And that's a big step. And I think you probably deal with that a lot with your clients too, of, once they're ready to commit, then taking them in on that journey to really commit to an elimination. And it has to be 100% elimination. It's not like you cheat every once in a while and have a little piece of pizza or just a bite and it's okay. It's like, if you really want to find this out, you got to do it. And so that's where I love the work that you do, that brings people together, and you're kind of coaching them and helping them and, working through those challenges.
Yeah, I think that is absolutely what you said. That's the hard part. You have to be in the right mindset for it. If you're not in the right mindset, then don't even bother, because you have to jump into the deep end with this stuff. But it's so worth it, and I remember it was what year is this? 2018. I think this was back in maybe 2014. So about 4 years ago, I was diagnosed with rosacea. And so I had all these small red itchy bumps on me. Maybe it was longer than that, maybe 5 years. And I just remember being so devastated. I was so, because I didn't know. I had already, No, it had to be longer than that because I hadn't changed my diet yet. So it was 5 or 6 years ago. So anyway, regardless of the timeline, this was at a point in my life where I was experimenting with acting. And so I was doing like commercial acting, like TV commercials and like radio stuff. And so, they pick you based on your headshot and you have to be in front of the camera and you have to go to all these auditions. And so I'm like, what am I going to do? This is awful. I have these red itchy bumps. And what's really awful, honestly, is that you go into the doctor and they say, here's a cream and this is, going to come and go the rest of your life. You might not, have them every single day, but, you're going to get these breakouts and then they might go away for a period of time. When they come back, just put the cream on. And I walk away with like absolutely no information, no knowledge about what's happening to my body, no knowledge that there's anything I can do about it. And then probably within a year or so, I started changing my diet for completely other reasons, non-related. And it completely went away. And I didn't even think about it at the time. And my now husband was like, hey, you haven't had rosacea in a really long time. I was like, oh my gosh, you're right. I don't have to use the cream anymore. And what's funny about it is if I remember right, like I held on to that cream for a while because it was like, but what if it comes back? It just makes me so nervous, it's your face. And eventually I threw it out because it never came back. But, we often think of acne as like the main thing, but people get rosacea. You had mentioned psoriasis. Mm-hmm. What other things do you see that people struggle with on a regular basis?
Well, eczema too. I mean, those are the most common, for sure. Of the flares that come and go, and certainly the creams help. Like, when you're having the flare up, they help control it. But if you're not aware of your internal triggers, whether it be your external stress or how you're eating or other things that might be triggering it, and being mindful at looking at those, it can be chronic and it can be quite a puzzle sometimes to put together. Some people, we struggle in like eliminating foods and doing different things, and we find out later that it was related to a parasite or something else that we weren't even thinking of. And so doing stool studies and yeast and looking at all of that and, checking for SIBO and all these other things. I mean, I know I might be, talking about things your audience may not know, but there's just so many other layers of going deep into it. The beauty of the skin is you can actually see when it's better, like you said.
Yeah.
You can see when it's better. You can see when it's bad. You have like almost like a visual feedback that tells you, okay, something's off. I got to figure this out. And I absolutely love patients that are committed to their own insight and being mindful and being a partner on the journey. Because, you can give the guidance of things that, to think about for that person, but they have to do the inner work and find ways to manage stress and find ways and commit to the nutrition programs and do everything. So
let's talk about that. You talk about having a 3-pronged approach. So dive into each prong. How do you approach it?
I view skin from, 4 areas, skin being one of them, and then 3 other areas. So I kind of see it from a holistic perspective. So I see it from a mind, body, spirit, and skincare perspective. So the mind is very powerful in all of this. Definitely having strategies to be able to calm your mind, to connect with your inner wisdom, your intuition, and finding your inner peace and your inner serenity, and diving deep into those different techniques that help can actually really improve your skin over time, in addition to doing other things. I don't feel like any of these are individual. You just do one at a time. It would be something you do a whole, comprehensive program of putting the pieces together. For your body part of it, I really feel like nourishing your body with clean nutrition is key. And I know you talk a lot about that as well. And just making sure that the foods that you're eating are sourced healthy, and that they match what your individual genetics match to, and what makes you thrive and make you feel vibrant and healthy. Also, when we're going through some challenges, we can also kind of work with the body with different herbal remedies and supplements to help heal your skin from the inside out. You'll also find that you'll probably heal other things as well, because the skin's not separate. So you'll find like leaky gut issues improve, maybe your blood pressure, maybe your cholesterol gets better, maybe some other things. Obviously, those aren't the primary things that I treat, but you might find incidentally those things improve when you look at your body and your nutrition. And then I always feel that there's a spiritual component to everything, and how you connect with the rest of your world. And it's really more about, not a religion or a certain belief system. And, everybody has their different ways of looking at their spirit, but really connecting with the heart and soul of your beauty that comes from within, and being beautiful from the inside out, and really realizing the light that's inside of you and the beauty that's inside of you and how that shines out, whether or not you're broken out all over or not. How you present yourself and how you feel about yourself. People can tell, and they can tell if you're upset and self-conscious, or they can tell like you're just embracing it and you just are who you are. And then the last piece is the skincare, just, working with tips and advice about clean skincare products, different ways to just enhance your natural beauty on the outside too. There's some data about things that we put on our skin that can be absorbed, and it all depends on what the chemical is and the concentration of it, the amount that you're putting on. There's a lot of mixed information on all of that, but just leaning everything towards more non-toxic things that are clean and healthy. So that's kind of the 4 areas: of mind, body, spirit, and skincare.
Yeah, I love that you approach it that way, because I really do. You mentioned you're probably going to find that you heal other things at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's 100%, because skincare is not my main focus. The gut is my main focus. But what happens is people get clearer skin when they focus on their gut, right? And the same thing when you're looking at anyone from whatever direction you're coming from, whatever your focus is, whether it's, healing the brain or healing the skin or healing the gut. If you come at it from a holistic view, you're going to be targeting things like stress and emotions and exercise and nutrition and all these different things. And when you get all of those in alignment, all of these other things kind of trickle in and start happening as well. And it's a beautiful thing. So, I initially started my desire to go down this road because of my hormones. Yeah, my hormones were like awful. I mean, just like almost non-existent. And so I was really, really struggling. And throughout this path, I figured out there's all this stuff going on in my gut. And so we started working on that, and the hormones come from that. And so it's just, I love that you take that approach. And so what are some things that people can do at home before maybe needing to see anyone, and in what circumstances do you think they should see someone?
Right. So certainly, cleaning up your skincare products can be helpful. And then just, using moisturizers on your skin regularly can be a huge game changer for things like eczema and psoriasis. And I live in Arizona. It's still 100 something degrees here right now in September. We're still pretty hot here. And so we definitely see a lot of issues with not moisturizing enough and things like that. So those are very practical things. Really taking a look and probably writing down your journal of your day, looking at where is your stress level at every day. Is that impacting you? Do you get a headache soon after? Do you get a tummy ache? Do you notice a few days later you're breaking out? What foods are you eating? And really kind of just doing your own personal assessment of where you're at in your mind, your body, your spirit, and your skincare. What am I doing today, and how is that impacting things? And certainly a lot of people can figure out a lot on their own, and I love that. And I think, that's the main journey, is when you do work with a practitioner, is to work with them so that you eventually can do this on your own, and you learn the skills of how to implement changes on your own and be very aware of your body and how things impact. But it can be tough. I mean, you don't have to have a medical degree to do some of it, but then you get to the point you're like, I can't put the puzzle pieces together. I'm struggling. And certainly when you're starting to feel kind of hopeless and frustrated and just like, I can't figure it out. Instead of giving up or just repeating the patterns that you probably know aren't healthy, just reach out. And maybe you start asking your friends, who do they see for this? Who are they, talking to? And having a good support system is also very key. And then if you feel like your friends aren't on the same page and you just want to look, Google's great. You can go online and find, I'm looking for an integrative dermatologist or a functional medicine doc or a coach. The IFM, the Institute for Functional Medicine website's a great resource. the integrative medicine program at U of A has a great resource, and there's other integrative medicine programs, and you can research to see who got training in that. And then when you meet with that practitioner, you want to make sure you align with them. There's personalities, there's styles, there's people that work with insurance, without insurance. There's people that, work at all levels of this. And so you just want to find the good fit. And for me, when I work with patients, I usually, I run as much as I can through insurance, but I also see myself as a catalyst to get them to other places they need to go. I don't feel like I know it all or have all the answers or can treat everything mind, body, spirit wise. There's a lot of other resources and people in town that specialize in just hormone treatment or just leaky gut, and putting all those pieces together. So
yeah, having that network I think is really, really helpful, and kind of even between practitioners, because then you can begin to refer out and say, hey, there's this piece that you need, and there's this piece that you need, and you can sort of put it all together for them, and they don't have to do the work, which is awesome. So with dermatology, if you're going to go see someone, does it need to be local, or do you ever work with clients long distance by video, or how does that work?
In allopathic medicine, working distance-wise can be a little bit challenging as far as the legalities of it and, being board certified in different states, and there's different regulations. So currently I'm not working with anybody outside of the state of Arizona. The state of Arizona is very firm on you have to be seen in the office to be able to write prescriptions or provide some guidance. And I do work in an insurance-based practice currently. So unlike, some naturopaths are able to do some remote things, functional medicine coaches are able to do a lot of remote things. When it comes to seeing physicians, it will depend on the state that they're working in and what those regulations are. And I think the way technology is going and the fact that we're doing this and giving information and guidance, I think eventually things will get a little bit smoother to be able to do these virtual consults and do that as well. And some states are already doing it. Just Arizona's a little picky about it right now.
It's coming. I think everything. Yes. I think everything in the holistic natural world is getting a little bit easier. So who knows where it's going to be in the next 10, 15 years.
Oh yeah,
Even just access to food wise. I mean, since my husband and I changed our nutrition approach several years ago, it's gotten tremendously easier. It's funny because I talk to my clients now, I'm like, oh, you don't even know, like, this is easy. Okay, you have so much access to so many resources.
Yes.
Like 5-10 years ago, it was so much harder.
Yes.
There's books now, there's blogs, there's Thrive Market.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and I think that's great. And you always want to start someone out with where they're at too. So some people aren't ready to jump all the way in and go all in. And so, one thing you could do is just go to the bookstore and look and see, look at some of the different, like the Whole30 program at, Dr. Terry Wall's, the Walls Protocol. And, there's just so many other resources that are there that you can look at to see what resonates with you and get a little start and see what works. So yeah, we're very fortunate.
Yes, it's an amazing time for sure. Do you have any product recommendations? I mean, you talk about the importance of starting to go a little bit more natural in your skincare. And I know there's so many products out there that may claim to be natural, but actually have a lot of, xenoestrogens or chemicals or toxicity in them. Are there any brands that you particularly like? Or
there are. There's a lot. And being an integrative dermatologist, I get exposed to a lot of different products. So there's a lot of products out there these days, and it's actually a little overwhelming even for me to kind of piece through all of the different things. And
do you always feel like you have to personally experience it before
absolutely
recommending? Yeah, that makes it so hard. Can I just say that to everybody? We try to only give you the best recommendations, and it's so hard sometimes because it gets overwhelming because you're like, I gotta know for sure.
Right. And, some products, patients will tell me about different products. And so then I purchase them and I try them out and, it's hard because I'm just a individual as well. And so it may not work for me, but it might work for someone else. And so at least I know how it feels on my skin. I know the consistency. I know the price point. Sometimes these prices can be insane and not very practical. I did bring some out over here to show you some of the things that I just use on a regular, like my go-to thing.
Yeah.
So they're going to be a little bit backwards, but you'll at least get the idea.
Perfect.
So one of my absolute favorite brands, and one of my colleagues and friends is Anne-Marie Gianni. And she has a wonderful, wonderful product line. And so I've been using her products for years. And, you know, when I try something else out, I always tend to resonate back to her products. And so I brought some of those out here. So this is her Citrus Mint Cleanser.
Okay.
I don't know. Can you see that? Okay. Is it blurry?
Yeah.
Okay. Should I put it closer?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll have to put links to these in the show notes for everybody so they can check them out.
Yeah, she's amazing. So this is a Citrus Mint Cleanser. And then she also has this amazing Rosemary Toning Mist that is absolutely fantastic. So rosemary can be very anti-inflammatory on the skin. And then, you know, I tend to have more acne-prone skin. And kind of one of the things that people don't realize is you don't always have to do products that dry out your skin when you have acne. You can actually use oils. And she makes an absolutely fantastic oil for oily skin. So this is her herbal facial oil for oily skin. And it goes on nice and light and very smooth. She also has kind of a little bit of a tinted concealer that you can mix with the oil to kind of do an overall tint as well.
Oh, that's neat.
So she's probably one of my favorite and go-tos. I don't have it with me, but Dr. Trevor Cates also has an amazing skincare line, the Spa Doctor. It goes on very nice. The cleanser, the toner, the moisturizer, her glow boost is just fantastic. So I don't happen to have it with me because I'm out right now. I need to order more. But she's another one that I go to over and over again, and she has a great book about clean skin from within as well. For sunscreen, my go-to one that I typically do is Davita. And so this is their mineral facial sunscreen. And I buy this at Whole Foods or I buy it online. And so it goes on very, very nice and light. There's also with sunscreens, and I just did a whole Facebook Live about this with Dr. Kira Barr as well about different sunscreens. But the key to it is to reapply. It breaks down. It has a short half-life when you're out there for a long time, and it doesn't guarantee that you're not going to get some sun through it. But Jane Iredale is another makeup brand that I absolutely love. Do you use it?
I use that, yes. So it's funny, if you look in my bathroom, and I've done some lives on this too, I have like this collection of like different brands for different things. Like I'll have like a foundation from one, like maybe a powder from another, a brush collection from somebody else.
Totally.
And it's like you got to find the right foundation that works for you, the right concealer that works for you. Because I'm not 100% convinced that any one brand has every product perfect yet, you know? And so I have this mix. But yeah, I love her. What is it? It's like a foundation, but it's like a CC cream. I think it's like a tinted CC cream.
Yep.
Yeah, I really, really like that.
Yeah, and I think you're right on that you have to kind of find your own path with these things. Like someone can recommend like makeup to you, but you got to try it out on yourself and see how you like it. The other key to your skin, actually talking about this, is that people don't realize your skin's different every day. And so when you wake up in the morning, you almost have to do like a personal assessment of like, okay, what's it doing today? Where am I breaking out? Where am I dry? What should I use today? And so you almost want to have like a whole collection of like, okay, I'm dry today. This is my thicker moisturizer. Okay, I'm a little bit more oily today. This is my little acne serum. Or
right. And that would go seasonally too, I'm sure. You're going to be more dry in the winter. You're going to be more oily in the summer a little bit. Yeah.
And then your hormones, right? So
I know. We women have so much to think about. It's like, yeah, you get on a certain week of your cycle, you're going to need something totally different.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And mindfully too. So, so this is the Powder Me sunscreen.
From
and
Jane Iredale. Okay.
So it's a powdered sunscreen. So what I do is I put this in a separate container, and then I use a brush right before I drive home.
Okay.
And then if I'm going to be out there for a while, because I'm not going to take off my makeup and reapply sunscreen, I'm going to want to powder over it. So that's one brand.
I didn't know about that. That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Color Science also makes a good powdered sunscreen too.
Okay. I'm going to have to put all these links in the show notes.
Yeah, Jane Iredale also makes a Zap and Hide Blemish Concealer. And so this is great too. So this is like a little mini version of it too.
Zap and Hide Blemish
Zap and
Remover.
hide. So it
So
has
is that
some,
like a little bit of treatment and concealer at the same time?
exactly.
Oh,
I know. I like it. It happens.
win-win-win.
And then I also love her pressed base. So this is like one of her just pressed powders too.
Okay, awesome.
And then speaking of makeup too, I have a couple other things here too. I really like to try all the different like natural makeup things, and I'm
Yeah.
not like a makeup artist. You can probably tell I'm very natural. I don't really put a lot of, yeah. So definitely there are some makeup artists that are probably very much more attuned to it, but I love Well People.
Well,
So,
people. Oh, I haven't heard of them.
oh, they're amazing. So this is one of their like blushes that you can use, and it's a powder. And you know, the search for the perfect mascara has
Oh,
been
tell me
very
about that. I would say, I think foundation with good coverage and mascara are probably two of the hardest things to find a more natural version of. A non-toxic
100%
version
agree.
of. Yeah.
The jury's still out. I mean, I love what I showed you with Jane Iredale. I love the Well People, the mascara that they have here. Let's see,
Okay.
it is the Expressionist mascara. So this
Awesome.
is one of their little
Well People
travel ones, and
mascara. Okay. Is that now, is Well People a pretty affordable brand? I haven't
it
checked them out
is.
before.
It
Okay.
is actually. Yeah. And so, you know, there's some other resources like the Detox Market is an online store where you can kind of research different ones.
I'm learning
Credo.
so much from you right
I
now.
know there's all these
I love
different,
it.
and so this is, I think this is going to be the trend. I think the things that have more chemicals in them and aren't natural based are kind of going to go by the wayside.
Well, you have all these companies now that are taking it on themselves because we don't have any regulations. I mean, we have minimal in the United States, right? They have
Mm-hmm.
so many more over in Europe. And so we have these companies now that are starting in the United States to just take it upon themselves to have what they call, the never list or, whatever. And so they have all those chemicals and all those toxins listed out and they say, we'll never put these in our products. So it's awesome because now we have a little more access, but those aren't typically, you have to look for it. Those aren't typically the ones that you're going to find in the drugstore because it's not federally regulated. So those ones that
Mm-hmm.
you find easily, at the drugstores are going to have all that other stuff in it, which is yucky.
Yeah, sometimes they do. And then the data sometimes is very mixed. I feel like sometimes a study will come out on rats and then it gets applied to humans and it was a high amount and it gets kind of blown up out of proportion and
Sure.
things like that. And so I feel like, where our knowledge is at now, we're still learning and it's still evolving. And so some of the toxins that we're afraid of now, we might find out are okay, or it was the dosing, or was it the absorption? And I mean, it's a very complex thing. But in the meantime, as we're trying to figure that out, you can make some choices of, okay, I'm just not, until they figure that out, I'm going to do this.
Well, and then always monitor how your skin reacts to it. I mean,
exactly.
there's eyeliners that can, for some people, if you're allergic to an ingredient, it's going to make your eyes itchy and red and watery. And if you do just that one simple switch and then all of a sudden you're fine, you may never even know what that ingredient was.
Right. Exactly.
And someone else may not have a problem with that same eyeliner. So I think you have to figure out what's right for your skin for sure. Your body will tell you.
Oh, it will. Oh, yeah. One way or another. My favorite body moisturizer, and I'm almost out of this, so the container's a little bit squished. It's the All Good Coconut Body Lotion.
Oh, that sounds delicious.
Yes.
All Good Coconut Body Lotion.
Yeah. And, and like some of these aren't perfect. Some of them are going to have a little something in it, like we just talked about, like you just said, that you're sensitive to or you don't like. My typical recommendation, if you've never heard of some of these products and you do want to check them out and you buy them, just try it on a small area. Don't put it all over, especially the first time, especially if you have sensitive skin. Like you just said, you never know. You don't want to put the eyeliner and that you're allergic to, you don't know it, and you put it all over your eyes, and then you will need to visit the dermatologist and probably get a prescription to help heal that if you can't do it on your own. So definitely start out small, take baby steps, and then
Yeah, and then thinking too of, you're making these efforts in many different areas of your life, your nutrition, your sleep, your stress, your makeup, your hair, all these sorts of things, so that you don't really have to be 100% perfect in every single one, because your
Right.
body should be able to handle, some level of stress, and stress covers all of that, toxins and emotions and all of that. So, and food. So it should be able to handle little stressors here and there, and you don't have these huge reactions, as long as you are aware and trying to make good choices. And then it takes a little bit of the pressure off, because I think some people like me that are like type A feel like you have to be perfect and 100% in every bucket, and you just don't, and there's no way to do it. You cannot live in the real world.
Yes. You can't, you can try.
You can try.
You won't function very well.
No.
But yeah, I mean, there is no way you could do this, like every little thing, and do it perfectly.
No.
And our bodies are extremely resilient. Resilient is one of my favorite words in the dictionary. Resiliency requires some stress. It requires some pushback from the world, whether it be on your skin, inside.
Let's say that again. Resilience requires some stress. That's really important. It's okay to let your body go through some things. Yeah.
And then sometimes we feel like stress is something bad, and something that happens to us is a bad thing. And I think a mind shift change would be, all stress isn't bad. It's going to help me grow. I'm going to learn something from this. So a good example is if sometimes you're thinking, I just want to be a little bit more courageous about speaking my mind and doing those things. And you kind of put a message out there like, I'm going to be more courageous and I'm going to do my thing. Well, you know what? You're going to come across things that cause fear, because if you don't come across things that cause fear, how are you going to step into being courageous and saying your voice? And so that stuff's going to come up, and it's okay, because you will grow and you'll become more courageous because of that. So just that whole mind shift change of like, it's all good for you. It doesn't feel like it at times. There are down times, like definitely not minimizing that. And there is some like serious stuff that happens and some awful things that do happen. But how we handle it, how we move forward, how we go on with the next day or that next moment can be very profound. And so just that little tweak of how you view stress is like, stress is actually okay. I'm going to grow. I'm going to transform. I'm going to transition into something better, and looking at it that way.
Well, I love you, and I think you're amazing.
I love you too.
Everything you just said is like it's so perfect. It's so true. And it's something my husband and I talk about a lot. We have both had really stressful pasts. We've really gone through a lot before we even met each other. And we look back at that and we can only be thankful for the stressors that happened, for the negative things that we had to go through, because it brought us together. And sometimes you don't see the benefits of it until you've come through the other side. But I've even been through some situations where right in the middle of it, I think, man, am I miserable? But I know there's a purpose to this. And so I think having that mindset, I would, it changes how you even deal with it in the moment. And so you don't end up in this, we're talking about, we can get super dramatic here, but you don't end up in the pit of despair, right? Because there are things, like you said, that are really hard to go through. And, but I've been through some, I went through a divorce, and, I've gone through all these different things in my life. And, but in the middle of it, that God has a plan. He's going to use it. And if you come out the other side, then it's a little bit easier to see what that was as it begins to unfold. But there is hope, people. And we're gonna bring this back to your skin.
I just have one more thing to add with that, is basically, I'm also not saying that you sidestep everything too, and I don't think you're saying that either. You actually do have to go through it.
Yeah, absolutely.
You do have to go through that grief and that loss of whatever that is, whether your idea of a relationship or, your body being a certain way or, different things. You actually have to go through those emotions and not bypass them to get to the other side, there are no shortcuts, girls. Like,
no, you're 100%.
yeah.
You have to feel the emotions. You have to get to the other side. And it's painful. Or it can be very painful depending on what's going on for sure. No, I absolutely agree. I'm glad you made that clarification because it is really important.
Yeah.
So bringing it back to skin, we're gonna we're getting deep there.
This is how I roll, you know.
I love it.
So you know.
I love it. So all right, we touched on a little bit of this in terms of, you know, seasonally or daily checking out your skin and kind of knowing what to do. You talk about maybe different approaches that you might take for dry skin, oily skin, acne, things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So
generalistic.
Yeah. So certainly if you're tending to break out a little bit more, you might kind of lean more towards using like the rosemary toning mist and use kind of more products that are more aligned with acne prone skin. If you have blemishes, Indie Lee, I don't have it with me, but she makes, they make a blemish stick that you can kind of touch on things as well. You don't, when you're breaking out specifically with acne, you want to try not to pick and do those things too, because certainly there's a lot of little bacteria that's on our skin and underneath the nails. And then when you're trying to get into your skin a little bit more, you can create more havoc too. And so that's a key piece too. When you're feeling like you're like, oh my gosh, I'm super dry today, you definitely don't want to use any of your acne products or things like that. You want to lean towards more moisturizing creams or moisturizing oils. And then some of the brands we just talk about, they don't just make things for acne prone skin, they make things for dry skin and mature skin and things like that too. So hopefully that answered your question. Was that?
Yes.
Okay.
Is there anything that might, that people maybe think is good for their skin that maybe you think they should steer away from? Like if somebody has, let's say rosacea or psoriasis, things are a little more sensitive type skin. Are there things that they think, oh, this is going to be great for my skin that you found maybe not so much, it's going to irritate you long term, or this is a common thing?
Specific to rosacea prone skin, that is kind of a little bit of a conundrum where you can have breakouts but also dry skin. And so you have that sometimes all in the same spot. You can have a pimple and then around it is super sensitive. So picking a good moisturizer that has some niacinamide in it. There's a brand, CeraVe PM, that's easy to get at the drugstore. It's not perfect. It's got some junk in it, but it has niacinamide in it and hyaluronic acid. That can kind of calm down the inflammation. And then in my rosacea prone patients, finding a good sunscreen that they don't react to can be quite challenging. And so definitely most of my rosacea patients can't tolerate some of the chemical sunscreens, and they do much, much better with the mineral-based sunscreens as well. But you definitely need to try them out. For psoriasis, what we found is that a lot of times scratching, rubbing, doing that can kind of irritate it, spread it. In psoriasis-prone skin, the blood vessels are really, really high up in the skin, so it doesn't take much of scratching to open it up and to make it bleed. And so using kind of thick emollients on the skin can be very helpful. So the thickest cream that you can get and putting that on and really not letting your skin get very dry. One of the ones that we typically recommend in dermatology is Vana cream, and that one is very thick. It's kind of goopy, but it's not perfect, but it can get you, and it's cost effective. It's only $14 for the big tub. It can get you somewhere. There's also the Unpetroleum Jelly by Alba, if you are against petroleum products, and that's a whole debate we can talk about some other time. But if you're against it, I have, respect for whatever your beliefs are, but that's another option.
Here's a question. Do you ever use A&D? It's like the baby rash ointment. I asked because I love A&D, and my mom, this is so funny because my mom never wears makeup. She's just very beautiful, natural beauty, and we had it in the house constantly. It was like the cure-all. It was like chapstick. It doesn't smell great, but it was like chapstick. It's like you get used to it though. I mean, I was raised with it, right? So now my poor husband, sometimes I'll slather it on my face at night if it's getting a little dry or I have a dry spot. And I'm like, sorry, honey, I got A&D on tonight. Or even if you have really, really dry hands in the winter, I mean, we just slather that stuff right on.
Let me ask you, do you have the clear one or the white one?
It's a white tube.
Okay.
It like it's always been sort of like a brown clear
Okay.
that comes
Okay.
out, I guess.
Yeah.
Like almost like the color of fish oil, I guess.
Okay. So, I mean, my biggest hesitation with most antis, so you're using one that rubs in that you can't see, which is great. So most of the time, it's a white cream, and then it just leaves a kind of like almost like the really thick zinc oxide sunscreen whiteness on your skin. And usually, what people like to do is they want to like get it off really good too, and so they use harsh cleansers or harsh scrubs to scrub it off. But the one you're using sounds like it's perfect, and I love it for that. So certainly you could use that, just as long as you're not trying to scrub it off. And, using harsh soaps, is probably not ideal.
Well,
if you're
it's not a sunscreen. It's not a sunscreen.
Right.
Okay,
Right.
But yeah, it's funny because to get it, you have to go into the baby aisle, and it's
Yes.
like baby, yeah. And it, like I said, doesn't smell great, it works. It works.
Yeah.
Nighttime face cream if you want occasionally.
Yeah. What else do you use?
That's a really great question. It has been a journey. and like I said, there is a blend of products, but a couple brands I've found I really like. I'm experimenting with Beauty Counter right now, using their cleanser moisturizer. There's what do they call it? Like a peel, I guess you just put it on and leave it on though. So I'm experimenting with that right now. I like it right now. Crunchy, I've used some of their makeup.
Never heard of them.
Yeah, so they're one of those companies that has like the Never list, and so I'll use their. Right, let's see, what do I have right now? I think I'm using their mascara. I actually do like that one.
Cool.
Some blush is from them. I got some lipstick from them. I'm trying to think. Jane Iredale, you mentioned that one. I have some foundation and some powder from her. So it's kind of this hodgepodge. My skincare right now, it's Beauty Counter, but I was also recently using Era Organics, ERA Organics, which if people want like a really affordable brand, that one was really, really affordable. And I think I got it on Amazon. And so I was using like their basic cleanser and moisturizer, and it was pretty good too. So yeah, there's so many different ones out there, and like you said, I mean, everybody's different. I particularly think about the uniqueness of everyone when I think about deodorant, because if you ever try to get like a natural deodorant, you got to do the pit check. It's not the same for everybody. One brand is going to work great for your neighbor, and one brand's going to work great for you. And
right.
You just have to.
Sometimes you got to go strong too.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to be willing to try them all.
Yeah.
So where can people find you? And before we do that, is there anything else you want to leave people with in terms of, what they can do to heal their skin and where they can go from here?
The main message I think that I like to share is just recognizing your own beauty and your own individuality, and being who you are and not being apologetic about it. Just be you and move forward. And just people are just going to have to deal with it. And so your beauty comes from the inside out, and we're all learning. We're all on a journey. None of us are perfect. You never know what's going on with somebody. And so keep an open heart and an open mind when you're talking to somebody, even when you're talking to your doctors and you're like, I don't align with what they do. Just realize that they're coming from their perspective, you're coming from yours, and we're all in this together. And so not necessarily related to your skin, but just like who you present yourself to be and how you interact with the world, I think is the most important thing. Your skin will follow.
I love it. I think that's excellent. Where can people connect with you and learn more about you? And are you on social media or your website? What do you want to share?
Sure. I have a I have a website, drmichellejeffries.com. And if you want to put it in the notes as a link, it's spelled DRMICHELLE, and then my last name JEFFRIES.com. So you can certainly sign up. I have an acne course that's coming up early next year, so you can sign up for the wait list there. Awesome. You can sign up for my email list. There's a free download there that goes through a little bit more detail about the mind, body, spirit skincare approach, and a couple of little tips and tools that you can kind of implement there as well.
Awesome. So for your acne course that's coming in 2019, is that going to be a video series, or what's that going to include?
So that is going to be a couple of downloads as far as videos, some lists, some product ideas of what you could use, some masks that you can use, different things about healing yourself from all different ways, and then some books as resources and everything. So it's
Awesome.
it's going to be pretty comprehensive. I can't wait.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Well, I'll look forward to that. Dr. Michelle Jeffries, thank you so much for being on today. I know I learned a lot, and I love it. I love just how holistic and whole body you are in your approach, and how everybody's unique, and not, we can't be perfect, and that's okay. And that is such an encouraging message, I think, that we need to remember, especially as we go down the road towards more natural approaches. It can get really easy to just get tunnel vision and then get really frustrated. And so thank you for reminding us of those truths, and for being on the podcast today. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. I had so much fun.